It's been a great week for West Ham United and Cup football. We started the week last week with an FA Cup win away to potential banana skin Burton Albion. We drew Brentford at home in the fifth round, and the under-21s development squad reached the National League Cup final after overcoming Tamworth on Tuesday night. And now it's back to business of the Premier League survival with our home game against Bournemouth this Saturday evening. If you're new to this channel, or if you've watched the West Ham Voice before, but you've yet to become a subscriber, the QR code is about to appear in your top corner there. All you got to do is click on that QR code to become a subscriber. No charge to subscribe to the channel. If you enjoy the content, please do hit the like button at the end of the show as well. So, what about Premier League survival? Well, although a win against Bournemouth might not necessarily take us out of the relegation zone, it could take us level on points with Nottingham Forest and just 2 points behind Tottenham Hotspur. Forest will host Liverpool on Sunday after our game on Saturday evening, with Spurs hosting North London rivals Arsenal a few hours later on the Sunday as well. Now, should we win, and should both Forest and Spurs lose on Sunday, then West Ham United will be within spitting distance of the chance of safety in the coming weeks. Sure, our next game is away to Liverpool the following week, but Forest will have an equally tricky away game against Brighton, while Spurs have to get something away at Fulham. Now, as they say, there's everything to play for, and West Ham are certainly not dead and buried by a long shot. In fact, it seems that both Nottingham Forest and Spurs seem to have pressed the panic button at a time when perhaps the best thing to have done was to have faith in the process and see how things might have panned out. There was a time where I thought maybe West Ham might have also pressed the panic button under Nuno's leadership, but they've shown faith with the manager, and it certainly does look like it's beginning to reap reward. Now, over the past 5 games, West Ham United have one of the informed teams. In fact, you can see from the last 5 games, we're actually 4th in the table. I know Arsenal played on Wednesday night, but that's not included in this. But that doesn't make much difference anyway, because they only drew with Wolverhampton Wanderers. So you could see over the last 5 games for West Ham, we're 4th in the league. We're behind Chelsea, Man United, and Bournemouth themselves. Now, you know, we got a draw against Man U in a game where perhaps we should have won. We got a defeat at the last minute against Chelsea, when we held our own. And now we've got Bournemouth, who are the 3rd best in the league at this moment in time. I guess that's how close the margins have been of late. Now, as for Forest and Tottenham Hotspur, the news is somewhat different. Nottingham Forest sit 12th in the league at the moment, and at the moment, Tottenham Hotspur are 2nd from bottom in terms of the last 5 games, in terms of their form. So it comes as no surprise that Spurs have decided to part ways with Thomas Frank. But should Nottingham Forest really have gotten rid of Sean Dyche? I guess the next thing that we're all worrying about as West Ham fans is the both new managers coming into these clubs, giving them the new manager bounce that they're hoping for. I'm not so sure that both teams are going to succeed in getting that. Let's focus first on Tottenham Hotspur. They've hired Igor Tudor. In his playing days, the ex-Croatian international was a rugged, intelligent centre-back, best known for a 9-year spell at Juventus, winning 2 Serie A titles with them and also starting the 2003 Champions League final. In his coaching career, he's managed no fewer than 10 clubs across 6 different countries: Hajduk Split, PAOK, Galatasaray, Udinese, Hellas Verona, Marseille, Lazio, and Juve. He's built himself a reputation as a mid-season firefighter, the guy you call upon when the house is already burning down, and Spurs' house is certainly ablaze right now. Tottenham sacked Thomas Frank after an 8-game winless run, which left them 16th in the Premier League, 5 points above the drop zone. Tudor was appointed at the end of the season to stabilise the club. Tudor was appointed until the end of the season to look at stabilising the club. But this assignment isn't necessarily seen as a long-term strategy. It seems to be more about making Spurs stay in the Premier League than another manager assessment will be made when the season's over. But Tudor hasn't managed in the Premier League before, so he's unlikely to find the firefighting approach as easy as he has done at other clubs that he's managed around Europe. He sets his team up in much the same way he played his football: intense, aggressive, and physically demanding. Now, when you look at the Tottenham Hotspur side, is that what they've got in their squad? Do they have the fighters that will play the way Tudor wants them to play? There's been suggestions that Thomas Frank wasn't backed or given the resources to build the kind of squad that he wanted. But Spurs spent well over £200 million in the transfer market, mostly on players like Xavi Simons, some guy called Mohamed Kudus, and Matthias Tell. Now, in order to try and make themselves harder to beat, they spent some money on centre-backs like Kevin Danso and Luka Vuskovic, as well as loan signing Polina from Bayern Munich. Perhaps this will be enough for Tudor to work with. I guess the game against Arsenal this coming weekend will be the obvious big first test for him. As for Nottingham Forest, now they've got their fourth manager of the season. They started with Nuno, included Postecoglou, went on to Sean Dyche, and now are finishing, or maybe finishing, with Vitor Pereira. Now, whilst there may be a chance for Spurs to get out of the situation they find themselves in, are Nottingham Forest going to have it as easy? It seems that owner Evangelos Marinakis has created a spiral of doom that he can't seem to get himself out of. A few bad results, and a manager faces the chop. Ironically, when the first manager of the season left, that's Nuno, it wasn't just because of the bad run of form or the results, but also because of a falling out between manager and owner over transfer business. In the 3 games that Nuno was in charge, he won 1, he drew 1, and he lost 1, the one against West Ham. Postecoglou managed to get through just 5 games, winning none, drawing 1, and losing 4. Sean Dyche lasted a little longer, having overseen 16 games, but of those, he won just 6, drawing 4, and losing 8. Ironically, had Dyche remained in charge, he's probably likely to have kept Forest up, despite the record not being fantastic. Yet, Forest now have their 4th manager, and in fairness to him, he did wonders for Pereira when he took over from the Wolves job from Gary O'Neill. At the time, in the 24-25 season, Wolves were 19th in the league with just 9 points from 16 games. By April 2025, Wolves stretched their points tally to 12 above the relegation zone. And by mid-April, they were celebrating Premier League survival after beating Spurs 4-2. But at the beginning of this season, by the time Pereira was sacked in early November, they had gained just 2 points from their first 10 matches. And despite Pereira signing a 3-year deal, he was dismissed. Forest have also invested quite heavily in their squad. They've also spent well over £200 million on new signings like Amari Hutchinson, Dan Ndoye, Arnaud Calumendo, and Igor Jesus. But none of these managers have been able to really get a constant tune out of any of them. If Pereira can get Nottingham Forest playing anything like he did when he took over at Wolves, then they stand a chance. If he gets them playing anything like he did in the first part of this season, the Wolves team, then the chances that they'll be relegated in place of West Ham are quite high. But whilst many West Ham fans worry about either Spurs or Nottingham Forest having a new manager bounce, we've already had ours and are already reaping the benefits of it and will continue to do so. Enter one, Paco Jemez. Now, I talked about the impact of Jemez a few weeks ago, a few weeks after he arrived at West Ham. But then I asked myself whether it was too soon to credit him with a sudden turnaround in performances and results. It seems I was onto something back then, and it's been proven by the way the players within the squad have been raving about Jemez's arrival. He was appointed as assistant manager to Nuno on the 15th of January. Since his arrival, we've won 3, drawn 1, and marginally lost 1 game, and that was the defeat to Chelsea in the Premier League. Not only has Jemez transformed the way we go into a game full of attacking enthusiasm, he's disciplined enough to know how to organise a back line. Oli Scarles and Dinos Mavropanos have both credited the coach with making the defence a lot better. Scarles said of him, he's brilliant, he's a defensive coach, and he's been really good at strengthening our back four. He brings a good vibe to the team. Thomas Souček was quoted as saying, Paco's a crazy guy. The manager and staff around him are a big part of this transition, this transformation. In training, the sessions have improved massively. There's now more intensity, and we have to keep building the momentum. So Jemez has clearly had a direct influence in such a short space of time. And when top coaches like Pep Guardiola and Luis Enrique are admirers of this coach, and we've all got to sit up and take serious note. They admire him for the attacking possession-based football he instilled, especially at Rayo Vallecano when he was in charge there. The side that he managed finished 8th in La Liga in 2013. And in that season, they edged Barcelona in possession stakes, the first team in La Liga to have done so in over 300 games. Ironically, Jemez modelled his Rayo Vallecano team on Guardiola's Barcelona. For Nuno to have brought in an assistant manager who is the antithesis of how he manages teams is a bold move, but it is working. Clearly, the backroom team that Nuno inherited, they were okay, but not helping him to bring positive results. Jemez, although a defender by trade, is all in on attacking play. It's about high press, recovering the ball fast in order to give the defenders respite during a game. And it's all about passing, improving control, and keeping possession. And this is what we've seen happen almost from the day he arrived. I talked the other day about my concern that Nuno may want to revert to a back five now that we've got the likes of Todibo back from suspension. But then, having looked through Jemez's past history of how he's managed teams, I don't think he's going to allow Nuno to get away with that. It was a surprise, therefore, that we went with 5 at the back against Burton last weekend, but I cannot see this happening again against Bournemouth on Saturday. When he arrived, we were 7 points behind Forest, and now we're just 3 points behind, and we have a chance of catching up this coming Saturday. So whilst everyone is concerned about the positive managerial bounce that Nottingham Forest and Spurs might get from their new managers, let's not forget that our managerial bounce started on the 15th of January 2026. We have a month's head start on the other two teams, and we've already settled into a rhythm. By the time Spurs and Nottingham Forest settle into their rhythm, it might just be a little bit too late to catch up with a resurgent West Ham United.